This is Not Worth Living, a podcast that features creatives interviewing themselves with a preset list of questions. Unlike other podcasts that feel like conversation between friends, this one aims to feel like eavesdropping on a psychiatrist's visit. Today's episode features...
Okay, let's do this. I'm not allowed to stop recording this time. This is the issue with letting fucking creatives control their own interview, is that I get like just fixated on sounding like I have no idea what I'm gonna say. I have no idea what I am saying. All right, here we go. My name is Max Restaino. I am a writer. I wrote a book that is called Coyote that I'll tell you more details about later, because that's kind of one of the questions. I'm at work right now, but it's really slow, and I feel like when I'm at work is the only time I have the energy to get anything done. So since it's really fucking slow and there's nothing to do here, I'm gonna do this. All right, so finally, officially answering the Not Worth Living podcast questions. And thank you, by the way, to Ira for inviting me to do this. All right, so I am allowed to skip questions, and I'm going to start with, would you open an envelope with your death date? And I think that I absolutely would. I was a terrible hypochondriac when I was in high school. I convinced myself that I had testicular cancer at one point, even though the doctors were like, hey, Max, you're fine. That didn't make a difference to me because my head said that that's what the deal was. So if I were handed an envelope with my death date in it, the curiosity would really it would be too much to bear. And I'd also just like to know, it would be like the deadline of all deadlines. Like, if there was anything that I was dreaming about doing but hadn't started yet or whatever, fucking thing like that, my knowing what day I was going to die might be the kick in the pants, so to speak, that I would need to actually get things done. Which is a good segue into the question, what keeps you motivated? Because I have very fucking precarious motivation in that it's fragile and not terribly common. A lot of the time it's more so guilt, in that I feel guilty if I don't get any writing done. I put that pressure on myself to create as often as I can, which is a weird kind of antithetical way of thinking about art, but at the same time, it's rewarding at the end of the day. I don't know if there is anything in particular that keeps me motivated. Just the idea that this is what I want to do and enjoy doing. So I just keep doing it because, it's fun. That's pretty much it. Who inspires you at the moment? A lot of other artists inspire me. particularly, and I talk about this a lot on Twitter, especially recently, but I'm very inspired by Christopher Norris, particularly his writing, his books, Hunchback 88 and The Holy Day, are really just, they're so singular, like very, I want to call them special, but that I feel like that doesn't even really do them justice. It's impossible to talk about those books. Like, even listening to Chris talk about them, it's, you know, he talks about them like they're fucking garbage, which is bananas to me. But he's very self-deprecating, which I do appreciate. You know, it's better than being like up your ass about like something that you created and being like, oh yeah, you know, it's too smart for a lot of people. And he doesn't do that at all. But what I am really find like inspirational about Christopher Norris's approach to literature is that it's so different than anything else other people are doing. It feels like it's the kind of thing, it's like he can write those books. I don't want to say stories necessarily because they're not really stories. And I don't know, the way that I think about it is, as much as I can like attempt to rip off Christopher Norris, I'm never gonna achieve like the same type of language that he does. Then yeah, I lost my train of thought, which I guess makes sense talking about those books, because it feels like those books are books that lose their train of thought and kind of find them again. And I think that that's a large part of obviously how my brain works a lot of the time, and what makes those like impossible texts any kind of relatable is that, I don't know, like the nonsense of it all. I'm very attracted to nonsense. What else has been inspiring me lately? I don't know, I guess just thinking about how every day is the fucking same. I've been thinking a lot about repetition and like kind of a mundanity, and like the like if mundanity was like a rock in the woods, and then you lift it up and there are all the bugs crawling around underneath, but one of them has like, you know, a tooth growing out of its head. Just like I like to think about what is potentially hiding out there in all of the wilderness and, you know, like undiscovered parts of our planet. I live in a part of New York that has a lot of like forest land and trees, and there are a lot of abandoned buildings and like abandoned farms and active farms. Like sometimes, you know, like I can go drive 20 minutes one way and I'll be in like an urban center, and then 20 minutes in another way and I'm like on a farm with some cows, which is cool. I mean, I haven't hung out with cows that much really, but it seems cool. It's very interesting to live in this part of New York, and I think it's just the abundance of forest that is around here, combined with, I don't know, I guess what you read on the internet, getting into cryptids and things like that. Just the idea that there are things that we don't know about that could be like living so kind of near to us in I don't know, another lost train of thought. But yeah, that's some stuff that inspires me. Yeah, Christopher Norris and trees. What's your latest project? My latest project was, so my first book was published on January 1st this year. It's called Coyote, and it was published by a small press called Amphetamine Sulphate, which you all undoubtedly are familiar with, and it feels really fucking weird, but also exciting. It's that kind of thing where, you can't be depressed and then move somewhere new and just be like all of a sudden happy and shit. Like you're still you. I don't know. I guess it kind of feels like that. Like it is really exciting. I'm wildly thankful, but at the same time, I'll never be able to look at the book the same way that other people do because I'm the one who put it together. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a fucking mess. And I guess that's, that's how Chris Norris can, talk about something like Hunchback 88 is like, he refers to it as like, it's a fucking nightmare. It's like, Coyote is just like, I like when people ask me, what is your book about? I don't fucking know how to explain it. And it's not like, I don't want to compare it to Hunchback 88 or anything close to what Christopher Norris is doing, but that idea of not necessarily having to tell a story from beginning to end, which also comes from Harmony Korine, has been a huge influence on me since I was 16 and I saw Gummo. And, he has that quote about how, a story can have a beginning, middle, and end, but he doesn't necessarily think that it needs to be told in that order. And it's not necessarily what I was doing with Coyote. I think that Coyote is more a story of escalating events that may or may not be about the same characters. There are, recurring names in there. Like, I think that I tried to make it cohesive. I don't know if it is cohesive. But at the same time, cohesive can be really fucking boring. And I don't know. It's difficult for me to think in terms of, all right, this is where the character starts, this is what happens to them, and this is where they end up. I don't know, my brain doesn't work like that. I'm thinking about one thing which spawns 15 other fucking thoughts, and like some of them might pertain to the original thought, but others don't. But obviously when you're writing a book, you can revise your thoughts so that they kind of thematically make sense together. And clearly that's not the case with your own brain. But essentially, Coyote is we call it horror. It's a horror novella about violent, intrusive thoughts. That's really just what it comes down to, is not understanding why your brain does the things it does and coming up with a reason that frightens you and being too frightened to discuss it with anybody who might know better than you do. So yeah, that's what my latest project is. This is my first book. It's called Coyote. You get it from Amphetamine Sulphate. The first publisher I sent it to was Filthy Loot, and Ira was very supportive, but he did not want to publish it. So look at me now, Ira. I'm totally fucking kidding. I've told Ira this before, but I really appreciate the rejection letters I've got from him because they're not form letters. He is a very, very thoughtful person. And I'm not just saying that because he has to, decide, he gets to decide if this episode is going out or not. You can totally fucking cut out this whole chunk of me talking about you, by the way. But it's also fine if you don't. It doesn't really matter. If money was no object, what would your dream project be? I've always wanted to make movies. I went to film school. My intentions 10 years ago were to become a filmmaker. Really never, ever thought I would write a book. The idea always kind of floated around in my mind as just somebody who is generally creative and enjoys making things. I had thought, it would be cool to write a book someday, but realistically, it's not something that I ever thought I would do. It was really only in the last few years that I got really into reading and writing prose as opposed to screenplays, and I've kind of attributed a lot of that to having ADHD throughout my youth, and I always really loved reading, but it was also difficult. It felt like it was more difficult than it was worth in terms of the effort that had to be put into it. But then, I was also trying to fucking read, As I Lay Dying, thinking about it now, so I probably could have picked easier books to read in high school, but I didn't want to. I was that fucking asshole. But I, for more than a decade, I really only watched movies. So movies were an enormous influence on really everything that I wrote. But this is, a long-winded way of me saying that, I still would love to make a movie someday, but the idea of having to, well, all right, in this scenario, I wouldn't have to worry about fucking accessibility to equipment and shit like that because money is no option. So I don't know, I would make a ridiculous fucking big stupid action movie. That would be really fun. Or I would pay to have Paul W.S. Anderson reshoot the Lost Event Horizon footage. I think that would be worth the money. If I could just have the money and didn't need to have a dream project attached to it, I would take a really, really long fucking nap. Is there a quote or motto that you work by? Not really. I mean, I've been saying for years now that my personal motto is, whatever, fuck it. And I think that is kind of a motto that I live by, for better or worse, is whatever, fuck it. Because, I don't know, what does half the shit that we worry about really matter? Like, there are a lot of horrible, real, awful, like, just objectively horrifying things happening in the world all the time. And I don't know, like, why get hung up on my, like, petty, stupid shit, you know? So, like, whatever, fuck it. And then there's also a quote from Doc Hammer, who is one of the two creators of the TV show The Venture Brothers that was on Adult Swim, and is one of the greatest television series ever. And I can't remember the context of what he's talking about necessarily. It has something to, it's from like a commentary track on one of the Venture Brothers DVDs. And I think he's talking about like how sometimes you need to kind of like, or like it's okay to have kind of like nonsense, silliness in a script. And what he says, like the quote he says in reference to that is, it's something that I'll never really forget, is sometimes nonsense is fun sense. So I don't know, that's always really stuck with me. I just enjoy being silly to entertain myself. And then in like a broader perspective, ultimately writing fiction is kind of playing in nonsense, or at least the way that I attempt to do it, or have the most fun in indulging in it, is, you know, nonsense, you know, being fun sense. Oh boy. Would you be friends with yourself? Now, maybe. In high school, fuck no, because I was a dickhead. Like, I just definitely, thinking about it, I don't know how to explain myself. Not in terms of, like, behavior or anything like that, but I don't know. I think I definitely thought I was a little bit cooler than I actually was. But I also, you know, in general, wouldn't want to be friends with anybody who was in high school as an adult. No offense to any high schoolers if you're listening to this, but I would prefer adult friends. But no, I don't know if I would be friends with myself. Like, in all honesty, probably not, because I really don't hang out with anybody. I spend most of my time by myself, so I don't know, or maybe that says that I do, or would be friends with myself, in that I am content spending so much time alone. I wonder if spending time with like an identical version of yourself would feel like being alone, or if it would feel like there was somebody else there with you. What do you do differently from other people? I'm gonna say nothing. I don't know. I don't really think about myself in that, like, super individual kind of way. I was voted most individualistic in my 8th grade yearbook, I think, because I was like the kind of kid who I put like a bunch of like duct tape and shit on my hoodie that I wore every day, so it had like duct tape designs and shit like that. And like, I don't know, I had long hair and wore like fucking like CKY t-shirts or something like that. I don't know. I guess that made me an individual. I went to a very small public school. So yeah, I guess that I did that differently in 8th grade. I was a different 8th grader. What would you like your epitaph to say? I don't know. Something cool. I have no fucking idea what I would want my epitaph to say. The end, which I guess is a good enough way to say, thanks, Ira, for having me on the Not Worth Living podcast. And thank you for listening if you made it this far. I don't remember what I said.